Hello, and welcome to Fine, I'll Talk About It, the podcast where we say the quiet parts out loud. Real, unfiltered talk that's straight to the point and no fake positivity. I'm your host, Danielle Young, and today I'm joined by Kate Bears. Kate is the creator of the Soul Integration Method, where she helps women heal the patterns of self abandonment, rebuild self trust, and return home to the truth of who they are. On today's episode, we are talking about shame, specifically about how shame affects individuals, its roots and belief systems, and its impact on mental health and relationships. So, Kate, welcome to Fine, I'll Talk About It.
Hi, thank you for having me. So
Yeah,
excited to be here.
thank you so much for coming on. I mean, shame is such a huge topic to talk about. I feel like a lot of people don't really want to talk about it because it's one of those very taboo subjects. Nobody wants to admit it. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, about your soul integration method, and we'll dive right in.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, I'm a soul integration guide and transformation coach. I've been guiding women and men home to themselves for over 30 years now. And the work just shifts and reshapes and morphs into us as we evolve, as I evolve, as I move through my life too. And in the last decade, 15 years, I guess now, I went through a really traumatic experience in my relationship and for most of the relationship. And that experience changed me. And for a long time, I thought, this is not good. This is not like, I don't know who I am anymore. And what I know and what's true about me is I've always been advocating and committed to making sure that things that change us for the good. And we go through the periods of trauma, we go through the periods of grief and shame and all of those things, but we have the capacity and the ability to transform that, to alchemize that into good and worthy evolution, like where we really are trying to land on a soul level. This is just a big piece of my arc of my life. And after my experience of that, when I finally left the chaos and I left the trauma, and I got well. I got myself back, or so I thought. I was back. I had healed the trauma. I worked hard about 2 years to heal that trauma and really felt like I was ready to get my life back. And I was stuck. I could not get off the mat. And I didn't know at the time without what had happened, but through that process, it exposed it. It brought it to light. And so that's where I really work now, in that I'm passionate about that because I didn't know what I was living in. I wasn't aware, and I'm smart and intuitive and empathetic, and probably part of what kept me in that empathy. Um, but I also know that many women, and again, men too, have this experience. And what they take from it is the shame. And that's what was revealed to me, was not just the shame of that experience of staying, of loving someone who was not who I believed they were, of being duped, of not knowing. How did I not know? And what I discovered was that shame was already there. It was there long before that person. That root of shame was in there. And you're absolutely right. People don't want to talk about it. It's been a challenge to get my work out in the world in this capacity because nobody wants to talk about shame. And so it's hard to lead with that. But it's really at the root of most all of our struggle, most all of our pain. And we
Yeah.
can trace it back to that. So that's what I do. That's who I am. That's what I'm doing here today. I'm working with women in my Return to Self program, which I took all the work that I did and I condensed it down into a 60-day program. We don't have to go back through the trauma. We don't have to do all that work. We don't have to do, we just go directly to it. And now that I know how to access it, I can guide other people to do that. So that's been for the last 2 years, 3 years, really, been my main container that I work with. It's been amazing.
Yeah. Well, the work is definitely needed. And yeah, I mean, shame is one of those things where we don't want to admit it because people have their preconceived notions of us.
Yes.
And if we admit that, we've been through something that they think we should realize ahead of time, then we think, oh, well, that makes us look like fools.
Yes. Yes.
How long were
Absolutely.
you in that relationship for?
Almost a decade.
Wow. So a long time. So, I mean, this was a
Yes.
long time of just repeated,
Yes, absolutely. Emotional
behavior.
trauma, emotional abuse. It was narcissistic, and I was covert. So I really did not have any concept of what I was even living in at the time. I believe everyone can heal. We can work together. It's just, I wouldn't say Pollyanna, but that's what I do. I know that people are wounded and how they show up is rooted in their wounding. And so everything's healable. Mm, And I tried. I tried. So, and that's the thing is, like, I discovered 4 years in to the relationship, and I stayed 5 more years. And the shame is what kept me there.
Mhm.
Only I didn't know it.
Were you thinking, if I stay, things will get better? If I stay,
Mhm.
I can change him. If I stay,
I can help him. I
I can
can
help. Yeah.
change me. It morphed into I can change me. I need to change me. I'm the problem. I'm the reason this is happening. If I could just be this way or that way or better at this or more pay or what, then this wouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
So it actually drilled down to the very root of my own core belief system.
Mhm.
People leave because of me.
Yeah.
And that's not true, but that's was at the root of my belief system. And in that lives the shame of if people leave because of me, what is it about me? And that's the hub of it. So the work really dives into the belief system, and that's the work I've always done. Is we move from the false perception of self, the false belief of who we are that we got rooted in childhood from just our childhood experience, that what we interpreted to mean about us, to untangling that and helping people move into and realigning with who they really are, who they came, how they got here. We didn't come that way.
Right.
And so, really getting back to that truest self and then taking those steps of how to integrate that and move in alignment with that and then live our life in that versus living in this false belief cycle that we just keep repeating over and over. So, I've done the work for many, many years. I, I'm, I wouldn't say I missed this one. I hadn't had the experience in my own life to touch that depth.
Mm.
That's really how I work. Everything I've experienced in my life has been used in my work. And I made an agreement, or I acknowledged an agreement years ago with God. Okay, if you brought it to me, it's intended for me to use. I will use it to the good, to the best of my ability. And you got to get through it first to unlock those pieces. This one took a little longer. It took time. It was hard. And at the bottom of it was that shame. So knowing that was the root of my own abandonment of myself, of this woman who I am today, who I was even then, the woman, I would have never left. If someone was treating my daughters that way,
Mhm.
I would not have stood by. But I allowed it. And so that wake up moment for me was when I like, what am I doing? It was as if the truest self, my adult, stepped into the room and said, "What are you doing? No, no, no. We don't allow that. We're not doing that." And that was it. That was my turning point. And I s- got her out of there.
Yeah.
And then once the trauma was past and the relationship was ended and the healing of the trauma and my nervous system had regulated and settled, I started having high anxiety, panic attacks. I felt like I was trying to climb out of my skin and I didn't know what was happening. There was no contact, there was no triggers, evident triggers. One night in a panic attack, I heard a very clear, "You're out of runway, turn around." And
Mm.
it was so clear, I turned around. I literally turned around. And there she was, the part of me that I lost in the fire. Part of me I left behind in that just to survive. The part of me I shut down. The part of me I kept quiet. The part of me that I abandoned to not be abandoned.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
It was, yeah.
That's super
And
powerful.
the only reason she would believe she would be abandoned was because she didn't deserve to be loved, and that's where the shame is rooted.
Yeah.
So in the belief system, when we say, I believe worthiness is really in everybody's suitcase somewhere. I don't know where it's never been in somebody's suitcase. But in that's obvious, it becomes obvious. But what we don't realize and what finally really clicked into this place was we really can't live from a deficit belief, an insufficient belief about ourselves that we're not worthy, we're not good enough, we're too much. Anything that is not true for us and it leaves us insufficient or in a deficit of worth or value. Shame is going to come with that.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it's because it's not about what we do. It's about who we believe we are.
Yes. Yeah. It's
Yes.
our own
And that
internalized belief system.
yes.
Who did we learn how to be when we were younger? And then how
Yes.
did that translate into as we got older? And then,
Absolutely.
you know, like you said, I wouldn't let my daughter go through this, but we don't see it. It's like a forest tree situation. You can't see the forest for the trees when you're in it. It's not like he's standing there waving a red flag in your face. I mean, and it can be those very subtle little things that just repeatedly over and over and over again. I mean, it does rewire your whole nervous system. And you live in that fight or flight. So when you come out of it, your body doesn't know any different. It doesn't, it can't, it's like paper tigers, right? So it's like you can't distinguish between safe and unsafe anymore. It's like your body doesn't know that you've left that relationship. It's just like, oh crap, I've been stuck in this state for so long and now what do I do?
Right.
You know,
And
and,
so
and
that's exactly true, right on
yeah,
it. And I know so many people that could say, "Yep, yep, you're talking to me." That's my experience.
yeah,
Most of the people I work with, they have had that wake up moment. I know if someone had tried to, I mean, I couldn't help myself in that, tried to help me out of that or bring it to me or show me what I wasn't seeing, I don't know that I could have seen it.
yeah,
So my work really isn't about helping them get beyond the relationship. It's about helping them get back to themselves
yeah,
once they've cleared the trauma. They've cleared. Now I do help them heal from the trauma. If they haven't done that work, I can do that. I do that. But really the most people that come to me, they come from this, why do I still feel this way? It's over. Who am I even now?
yeah,
And I always bring them to that, "You're who you've always been. She's just in hiding. You had to put her in hiding to protect her.
yeah.
And she's right there."
Well, and that's part of the shame too. We think that healing should be linear and there should be a timeline to it. And why am I not healed by now? Why do I still feel this? Like it's been a week, like it's been, it should be
2
over by
years.
now.
Right.
I'm out of the
Right.
relationship. It should be over. No, that's not how this works. It's so not how this works. And I wish more people understood that because there is
Yes.
shame in healing as well.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
it's like it's not linear. You're not on someone else's timeline. You're on yours and your bodies and whatever that looks like for you. It's completely individualized.
And it's so interesting. And I learned this when I started doing this program and having conversations with people about it. And really, for years, I can remember people sitting in my circles in retreats, and we'd have a shame fest, which was an exercise we would do where everybody, it was a safe container and it was hard, but it was so freeing. I don't have any shame. I don't I'm I don't have any shame. I'm an open book. And that would be their, because they had shame about shame.
Yeah.
So much so that they couldn't really allow themselves to touch what was at the root that they weren't seeing. I think that's just our nature. We want to be the best of ourselves. It's like you said, if there's shame, there's a connotation that we're flawed in some way. We did something or are something to be ashamed of versus how do we hear that our whole life? You should be ashamed of yourself.
Hmm.
Like, no, no, you shouldn't. Or even, be good. You be good now.
Yeah.
I mean, we hear that. Why are you telling me to be good? Because that indicates that I'm not already good. I need to try to be good. I am good. But we don't think about that language. And that's so subtle. And those things can get rooted in there very simply, very innocuously, not from a place of intention or abuse, but from just parenting style.
Yeah.
just simple the way, we've all done things, said things that were like, oh, I didn't realize the impact that had.
Yeah.
And there's another thing about the grandmothering is that I'm wiser now. I can see that. Like, okay, I don't say be good. I say, okay, you be you. You be the best version of you you've got. And when they're dysregulated and they're acting out, it's you need a hug. Like we have a hug bell. They just ring the bell, and if they need a hug, they get a hug, and wherever they
That's
go.
so
So
cool.
all of us. So it's someone I saw that somewhere. I was like, that's brilliant. I'm going to use that. So I think it's a good idea to keep our own ring bell. Like when I need to love on myself, I need to pay attention to that part of me, not tell her to shush and you're fine, or I'm going to give you something to cry about kind of thing.
Yeah.
You should be over this by now. Suck it up. No. Hey, what's up? What's going on?
Yeah.
What do you need? And that, I can see the shift of energy when that child shuts down a little bit because they feel like they're too much.
Yeah.
And that child is in all of us.
Yeah, I mean, it's that fear of being too much. If you've ever had someone, just jokingly even say, "Oh my God, you're so
Yes.
much. Like you're so
Yes.
extra." I mean, and just hearing it one time can really kind of put something in, like plant a seed. Well, if this person
Absolutely.
thinks I'm too much, am I? And it's funny how we always throw it back on ourselves. It's not the other person's fault. It's not the other person's problem. It has everything to do with us. And it's like, no, that other person can't handle, they don't have the emotional capacity to handle what's going on with you. So therefore, they project, and that's their stuff that they're throwing on you. It has nothing to do with
Absolutely.
you. And I think that's the hardest thing, too, for people to understand is other people's reactions and what they say to you is a projection of themselves
And their own shame.
and their own shame.
And blame,
Yeah.
even blame is projected shame. If I'm blaming someone else, I'm not wanting to look at what I'm not feeling good about in my own self. So it's the same. Blame, anger, there's so many ways we project shame. I always say, I can give me something, I'll show you where it's connected to shame.
Hmm.
We can always trace it back to that. And it's like the quirk, the universal quirk in our joy, in our life, who keeps us from being who we are.
Yeah.
Projected out into the world, when I moved here to Austin, the keep it weird place, 30 something years ago, I had, I grew up, you don't leave the house unless you're done, you know,
Mm.
you're dressed, makeup's on, your hair. And not really from a shaming way, but just modeled to me.
Hmm.
So very hyper conscious about appearance or
Yeah.
how I appear to other people.
Yep.
And one night my kids were sick. I think both of them were sick, and I needed to get medicine, so I had to go to the grocery store. So I hauled them in my pajamas to the grocery store, and no, I was not done. I was tired. I was tired, and nobody ran screaming from the building.
Yeah. Funny
Nobody
how that
looked at
works.
me and went, "What are you doing? Oh my gosh, go home." I was in my pajamas and I was doing what needed to be done. And that wasn't the most important thing at that moment. And it really was so obvious to me that that had been all my imagination.
Hmm. Well, it's
Not
what you
only
were
did
taught.
people not look at me and run away, they didn't even look at me at all.
Yeah.
They didn't
Yeah.
care. It wasn't about me. And
Yeah.
so that freed me so much. But that many years ago, it's rooted in that. What is it I don't want people to see about me that I believe is true about me? What would that have meant about me? I don't even couldn't even answer you that today. I just know that that's how I was conditioned to be.
Right.
Not be something you're expected to be, not be yourself.
Right. And whose expectations were those?
Right. Well,
They weren't yours.
they weren't mine, and
Yeah.
they were trickled down from whom?
Right.
And that's just how it gets rooted in. The
Mhm.
shame of who I believe I am. And what I learned in my trauma experience in that panic attack from that work was I didn't just believe I was unworthy and would be abandoned. I would say she believed she was bad.
Mm.
Not that she had been bad, not that she had done something bad, but that she was bad, period. Like, what 3, 4-year-old child believes they're bad? That's how old she was.
Yeah.
That's how old it was.
Yeah. It's a
And it
3
was
or 4-year-old
it was
child that's
bad.
been told.
Right.
Yeah.
And to stay with her until she came out of that. So the work that I now do is retrieving those parts and bringing them back, not going back through the trauma, not going to the experience, not reliving it, but reclaiming her. She's stuck there.
Yeah.
And that child part of us, when they're stuck and they're not healed and they're in the nervous system, when they're triggered, they hijack us. And so she was the one that stayed in the relationship that was afraid to leave. She was terrified of being abandoned.
Yeah.
She was abandoned every day, emotionally abandoned
Yeah.
almost every day. The the real her fear was to not be abandoned by and be left alone. Alone wasn't the problem, which I didn't really realize for a long time. It was being left. And through the process, I remembered an experience as a child. I don't know, it seems around 5 or 6, but I remember my mother taking all of us, 4 siblings and me, to my grandmother's and saying, "I think it's time we separate," meaning her and my dad.
Mhm.
It was chaos, and what I heard was divide. I didn't register separation, them separate. I registered as a family separating, dividing. I was the middle child. So, and I remember it clearly now of that means 2 go with her, 2 go with him. Nobody's taking me. I'm not getting picked for a team. And I already had that shame there of believing nobody wanted me.
Wow.
Nobody would choose me. And it's heartbreaking to think that a child believes that. And
Yeah.
so that's the work I did to help her out of that, to help her regulate, to help her know who she is, to remind her that she's good. I mean, that I had to reparent that part of me. Not had to, that was the work I got to do and integrate her back into wholeness with me. So she's not hijacking me all the time,
Yeah.
you know, choosing things that are not aligned and not healthy and not good and harmful and hurtful just to not be left. And my parents didn't separate, and they probably should have. But that child, I remember my siblings were, they were whatever. They didn't really have a response or reaction to it. I threw a fit, cried, no, no, no. And it wasn't like I was that close to my dad. It wasn't that. I didn't want to be separated from my dad. I didn't even register that's even what she meant. I thought it meant all of us were dispersing.
Yeah.
How was it going to be left? That's so sad. But
That is so sad
that's,
for a little kid to think that, and
mhm,
that's what happens to so many of us. We had that, that one moment that
mhm,
it could just be a word
right. It's how we
that,
interpret.
yeah, that just gets implanted and it never
Right.
leaves unless we recognize it and get it out of
And
there.
and I was kind of the odd one out in my family because I didn't have a buddy in the system. Everybody had a buddy, the 5 of us, they were buddied up, and I was kind of just me. Um, I don't know if it's middle child thing or it's just the way it unfolded, but I already felt like nobody really liked me. So it was sad now when I think about it, but it's also not sad. It's part of my journey. It's part of what I came to experience. And I can hold her, and she doesn't feel that way anymore. She knows who she is, and she's wise. And she was wise when she was young, and she knew things she shouldn't know, really. And I never knew why I knew things I shouldn't know, but now I understand. And so every stage, everything, every experience has brought me closer to wholeness and integration. So I think that's just my life. That's what I do. And so that's what I help others do.
Yeah. Isn't that funny how that works?
Mhm.
We recognize it later, like, "Oh, this happened to me," you know? Yeah, it was it was bad, but guess what? I learned from it. It was a learning experience, and now I get to use it to help others and pay it forward, and, yeah, yeah, I feel the same way. Nobody wants to go through this. Nobody wants to go through hardship or, the pain or the heartbreak, but sometimes it's to learn.
Exactly. I can remember, not in this experience, but years before this, just going through a challenging experience where I felt really victimized. Like it felt unfair. It felt wrong. It felt like, why is this happening? This is not mine. Like I felt very, I wouldn't say put upon, but victimized. That's the best word I can say about it.
Yeah,
And I can remember I was on the floor and I was praying and I was wailing, really, like, why is this happening? Like, what am I supposed to learn from this? And because I even knew then, and I was probably in my 30s, 40s, I guess. And I just remember feeling myself sort of being lifted up. And the awareness of that came through really clearly was, if I still feel like a victim in this, I'm not done. I was not sent here. I was not put here to leave this earth believing or understanding or experiencing myself as a victim. That's not why I'm here. It's part of my process, but it's not the end of my process.
right.
So if I'm still feeling it, I'm not done. And it moved me deeper. It moved me further. And,
Yeah,
in my humanness, I'm wailing, flailing about on the floor, going, "This is not fair."
yeah,
Um, and it wasn't, but it was something I needed. And I can't even remember today what transpired from that experience, but it's always been something of an evolution, something that was coming. And then afterward, oh, okay, now I get it.
yeah.
Now I get it. Okay, thanks. It's like,
Yeah, thank you for that. Duly noted.
could you
Yeah,
make
because
it softer?
what happens when you stay in that victim mindset? I mean,
When I
so much
say
happens.
yes,
You just
because it's
land
just,
there and stay.
if you stay in the victim, then everything looks different, feels different, life is experienced different. It's so hard. That victim filter, I would say. I used to think that, the old adage of there's no real victims. And I'm like, that's bullshit. Yes, there are in the human experience. If I chose this experience as a soul, if I chose this, then that's the part of me that's not the victim. I'm in the experience by choice on a soul level. We don't remember that when we're in the experience. Don't tell anybody that. That's not how it works. It's, you are feeling this experience. You are feeling this right now. And you hold that space for them through that until they find their own way through that. But to hold them in that space of, oh, you poor thing, that this is happening. And I don't believe everything happens for a reason. I believe there's purpose. We can divine purpose in everything that happens if we choose to. We can find our way through it. Um, we can find meaning in it and use it. I don't feel like it's just carte blanche. Everything happens for a reason. Get over it. No, I think that's incredibly invalidating.
Yeah.
Incredibly invalidating. It's okay if this is happening. My job as the alchemist is to transform it.
Mhm.
What is it here to transform in me or help someone transform in themselves
Yeah.
when it's time, not too soon.
Yeah.
And staying in that victims, it makes you sick. It does,
Yes.
mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically.
Physically.
It
Yeah.
physically makes you sick.
Yeah.
Um, so, and I know a lot of people that live there.
Mhm.
It's, it, they need held space for them, not shame and criticism. They just need modeled the possibilities. Live your life. Be the best version of yourself you can be for those who aren't yet able to, and see what happens, because we can't reach everyone, and you're certainly not going to shake it out of them. Although sometimes you want to.
Yeah.
It's a hard, but it's like compassion, having compassion, lived experience, and holding space for them until
Yeah.
they can hold their space on their own.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, I had a friend who it was just the blame game, you know? It was like, just blame everyone. It's like, no, really stop and look in the mirror, because I feel like every time we want to blame someone, and I know I'm still guilty of this, even though my healing journey has been over 20 years, but I still want to look externally and
Of course.
yeah, and say, "Oh, why did they do that?" And, like, it's like, "No, okay, take a step back, Danielle. Like, what does this mean about me? Like, what can I learn from this? What can I take from this moment?" And oftentimes it's like, "I didn't wanna look at that. I don't wanna look at that just yet, but okay, since you're forcing me to, I will." And I think it's in those moments that we really learn our truth and we really learn, like, who we really are at our core. If we can stop, pause, and say, "Okay, why am I doing this?" And I do think the most important question that we can ask ourselves is talking like, "What do I need right now?" It's that asking of, "Okay, I'm feeling dysregulated. I'm feeling kind of just all over the place. What do I need right now?" And just taking that pause.
Yeah. And we're turning toward it versus away from it.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of the work is turning toward ourselves, turning toward the trigger or the trauma versus away from it. That's what I was running from. That's why I heard turn around, you're out of runway. I didn't know I was running away from her pain because that part of me that I left behind was still stuck there. She was still suffering. And I had been so focused on healing the trauma that I didn't go back for her. So I kind of lost her in the fire. And I needed to reclaim her and bring her out of that time. And it was like, goodness, finally, I had to really make it hurt for you to turn around. But the panic was hers. The anxiety was hers. It stopped as soon as I really made that connection and started working there, my adult self working with that part of me. And there was the part that was in the relationship, there was the part of the younger part that was there, so the parts of me. And when I focused that way and stopped focusing on the trauma and not ever letting, hypervigilance, the anxiety stopped. I didn't have another panic attack.
Hmm.
It was amazing. So I knew it's like, oh, this is important.
Yeah, little
And
you
that's
running the show.
where the return to self was born because it's like, okay, there's something to this. Because it wasn't, we've all done inner child work. It's not that. It's it's reconnecting. And it might not be a child. Typically there's a root from childhood because that's where it starts. A root, that part is through our whole lifetime. But it's just turning toward whatever's there. And like you said, what do you need? And in my experience, it's, what hurts right now? What do you need? Co-regulating. We know how to co-regulate with our children. We need to co-regulate with our child self
Right.
because she's the one that's panicked and terrified of being left. And so if I can hold her and literally, you know, feel myself, just hold this, even this, just this much, and breathe and regulate, when she calms, I calm.
Yeah. Well, it's perfectly normal for us to ask our kids, what's wrong? But we don't ask ourselves. Like, why don't we ask ourselves this question?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's all external. Everything's external. And you named it. And that to me is also where the codependency is rooted, which is pretty universal. It's just a word, but it's really describes our external dependency on others for our sense of self, for our worthiness, for our validation, for our acknowledgement, for our connection, for our love, for to know we're okay, we're good enough. That definitely starts in childhood. And so that codependent, and that comes along with attachment style too, attachment trauma. It begins there where we start seeking, am I okay? And, in the abandonment trauma can happen, from cried out parenting, dropping a child off at daycare when they're dysregulated. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not intentional. They're not abandoned, but
Right.
that's what they interpret. And so it gets rooted. And then that, because of that fear, we can start beginning that process of seeking external validation and motivation.
Yeah.
So when you said the magic word, external, codependency, interdependency is internal, into me. When I turn around and I face me and I connect with me, I can heal that. I can hold that. I'm 100% in charge of it versus dependent on someone else to
Right.
feel loved, accepted, good enough, etc. And it
Yeah.
is cultural. It's universal, really. As a it's humanity.
Yeah.
It is for humanity.
Yeah.
So we learn that, and then we just fall into step with it.
Right. Yeah. I when people say, "Oh, I don't have any trauma," I'm like, really?
Same. Yeah.
Did you not have a childhood? Were you just born 25? Yes.
Right.
I
Well, and
would
because
really
we
like to
don't
know
know what that means.
how that
They think
happens.
of trauma as big, bad,
Right.
horrible events versus anything. I heard this definition through this work and through my own healing of it was anything that leaves you different than you were before it.
Mm. Oh, I like that.
It's not the experience itself. The experience itself is done, it's complete, it's over.
Mhm.
It's what you take away from the experience
Yeah.
that's the trauma.
It's the linger.
And then it just revolves and consistent. It just cycles. So really getting underneath it, getting back to who we were before it happened,
Yeah.
that's key. So getting back to what I would call the original self, like who were you before that happened? And again, this isn't memory. A lot of the work we do, and I do, is a memory, a stored memory. When's the first time you can recall feeling this way?
Yeah.
Great. That's work. It has its place. It's powerful. This isn't that. You turn directly towards that part and you ask
Mm.
and you listen for the answer and you will get it. That was the part that was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
We don't have to do that. We don't have to go back through memory of trauma, relive the trauma. Many people don't recall their trauma.
Right. Yeah.
They have put it away in safety and protection. Let it stay there. If it's there, I learned that years ago. If it's not something I can remember, I'm not intended to remember it.
Yeah.
And when and if I do, then I'm ready. But I spent years digging in trying to understand the connection of my trauma and like what I was experiencing as an adult versus and where it came from. It might have been past life. I don't know. I did that work too. I do that work. But it's like that's a lot of spinning to
Yeah.
get there for what? When I learned you can ask directly and receive, that part of you is right there. It is alive, it is breathing, it is available. When you ask and you learn how to listen and hear that part of us, of yourself, that's where the magic is because she'll tell you exactly what she needs. Like you said, what do I need?
Yeah.
How do you know what answers? What part of you answers? You already do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's that easy, but we don't think of it because we think we need to remember something. So people are saying, "Yeah, I don't remember anything from childhood," but she does. So
Yeah.
it works. It's a
Yeah.
direct connection. It's very powerful.
I love that you embody it as the small child because I think so many of us we want to say no, it's us, it's me, but we don't realize that there's actually like little me and then now me.
Yeah.
And I love how you separate the two because then you're not putting it all on you per se. You're putting it on this little you. And it's like you can look directly at it and say, like a little child, and say, okay, what is it that you need? And I think for a lot of people, that makes it so much easier to connect
Hmm.
than just saying, okay, now go back and tell me what happened. And well, nobody wants to go there. I know if you ask me things that happened in my childhood, I'd be like, I don't want to talk about it. But if you go to that little you and you're like, okay, tell me what it is that you need. And she tells you, that's that's profound.
It is, and it's so available, but we don't know how to do it. I know how to do it now, but we don't typically know how to do it in our
Right.
healing. So we get stuck because we've done the work that we can in us as the adult, but we haven't connected those dots. And
Yeah.
she's still there and she's hijacking. Every time something happens that is familiar to that energy of abandonment or fear or loss or not good enoughness or shame, whatever that is, and she's triggered, she hijacks the adult in us and reaches through us to get that need met from whoever's in the vicinity,
Right.
be that a partner, a friend, a child, parent, whoever it is,
Yeah.
the world at large, externally. When we see that happening, when we watch that, I mean, I don't know about you, but I can witness that now in myself when it happens.
Mhm.
And I call it, I'm doing that thing I do.
Yeah. Yep.
And
Up
that's all.
again
It's
and
just that
again.
easy. It's like, oh, she's doing that thing she does. Okay, she needs me. And it's not a shaming thing, it's an acceptance thing.
It's a
My
recognition.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, she's doing the thing. My granddaughter, she's 2. She's one of them. And so funny. When she does, she gets so mad and because she doesn't get what she wants and she throws herself back and I call it melting. Oh, are you melting? Do you need me to hold you? And so but so I have tile floors and wood floors, and so when she's here, she's learned, okay, can't do that here on this
Yeah.
floor. I have to get on the rug because it's like,
Yeah.
no, that hurts. And so she'll start to, and she'll go, and she'll scoot herself over to the rug, and then she'll just throw herself back. It's
Cute.
so funny. And I'm like, you're melting, you're melting. Okay, do you need me to hold you? Sometimes she'll say no. Sometimes she'll say yes, because she's just dysregulated. She's mad 'cause she can't have what her sister has, or whatever's happening.
Eh,
Okay, well, there's that part of us is still in there. Sometimes I'm just melting and I don't know why. What's happening? Why am I so mad? Why am I frustrated with this person cutting me off in traffic or not going fast enough? It seemed like, well, what does that have to do with my child self? Well, because she's not feeling safe. And when she doesn't feel safe, Mama Bear comes up to protect her. So
mhm.
I get like, hey, hey, I'm driving here kind of thing. Well, really, it's just her. Something's happened. I can feel the shock to my nervous system, like, "Oh, something scared me," but she's the one that's feeling unsafe. Does that make sense? It's
Yeah.
a very once you connect the dots, they're easier to access to what's happening. And I'm not saying I never have an emotional moment as an adult, but I'm not reactive.
Right.
Like it's genuine or it's authentic or it's really here in this moment versus I'm triggered and I'm reacting.
Yeah.
Responding is different. I'm responding to the experience I'm having versus reacting from some place that I haven't healed.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
when your reaction is so much bigger than is called for,
Yeah, and there's a
that's
huge
when,
difference
yeah,
between reaction and response,
absolutely.
because reaction, you're coming from a place of lack, or a place of the unknown, and responding, you're coming in with some knowledge of what's happening.
Yeah. I'm in my adult. My adult is in
Yeah,
the room.
yeah,
And so a lot of this process is maintaining and making sure that when you're in that space, when you're vulnerable and you're feeling shaky, you're triggered, that you make sure your adult steps into the room. Once people have done the work and gone through the process, the tools are there that they can use in the moment to bring themselves into the room so that the adult can help the child regulate.
yeah,
So it doesn't get projected outward to whatever's happening. It's an internal experience and it can happen really quickly once they've learned how. And we just don't have to spend so much time external in all that agitate, especially in our world today. There's so much. There's so
mhm,
much going on
mhm,
that is triggering to be able to maintain and stay true to ourselves. So in our adult self, it doesn't necessarily mean the wisest, the wisdom one. That's the truth. That's the highest self. But the adult is the one with the experience. And when we are in our adult and we are able to call in higher guidance, that's when the connection is. And that higher self then can guide our experience more than the child and us trying to manage that reaction. I don't know if
yeah.
I might be talking too deep here, but
No, no, it makes sense.
yes,
Yeah,
it's a powerful reconciliation and integration. So it's the who we are now, our true self, and our child, and every child we've ever been. So it's our all integrated as a whole so that we're living in alignment with who we are. We're not disowning the child. We're bringing those parts back in, giving them their rightful place at the table, acknowledging the value and the gifts that they bring, and integrating so that when we need to be vulnerable in a situation, that part of us is available, not shamed and told to go away and not, you know, suck it up.
Right.
Or we allow for those parts to be present versus hiding in the shadows in shame for being who they are, for being sensitive, for being bold, for being angry, for being bossy. I was bossy.
Or human. We shame
Human. We're
ourselves
all
for
human.
being human.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're all human. We're all having a human experience. And why does one emotion not accepted over another? That it's a human experience.
Yes.
And I want to take just a couple. I mean, we only got a few more minutes left. I
Wow.
wanted
That went fast.
I know. I could talk about this forever. Shame versus guilt.
Mm,
A
yes.
lot of us can't tell the difference between what's shame and what is guilt. What's your take?
Guilt is about what we've done, actions we've taken. Shame is about who we are. And guilt is healthy if it's earned guilt. We need it. It's part of our conscientiousness and consciousness. It keeps us in alignment with our integrity. When I've stepped out of integrity with myself, guilt is a healthy response to that. But it's mine. It's for me to get back into alignment, to step back in to who I am, to make amends, an apology, whatever I need to do if I've harmed or hurt someone else and that affected someone else. Okay, that's mine. That's my responsibility. Shame is when we believe we're bad for having made that choice or taken that action. So I always say bad people don't feel shame.
Hmm.
Good people, because they don't want to be unlike themselves when we're out of alignment with who we are. And just by the way, when we're out of alignment with who we are, when we're moving through our life from a false sense of who we are and not even behaving badly, just not being true to ourselves, there's shame. Because on our deepest level, we know we are not being authentic.
Yeah, we are moving from
Right.
alignment. Yeah,
And it's got a shelf life. What our truest, our soul of us will not let us live out of alignment and out of integrity with who we are indefinitely.
yeah. No, it
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 will,
has a very short shelf life.
yes, it will bring us back into our awareness if it has to use a 2x4. And that's when the hard experiences happen because we're not paying attention. We're not conscious of how we're moving through the world or how we're showing up in the world. And I don't mean we're showing up in, bad ways, we're hurting people. I just mean we're hiding. We're not expressing ourselves. We're walking on eggshells. We're people pleasing. We're, going along to get along. We're not being true to who we are. And in that, because that part of us that's perched here on this self, she knows.
Yeah,
What are you doing? You're doing that thing you do. It's that part that absolutely knows when we are out of alignment. And so getting in alignment without shame, like without beating ourselves up for it, we just have the freedom to step back in. But if we don't know what that alignment is, where do we step? So part of this work is identifying what's truth and what's false, what's ego. And ego is a part of our humanness and we need it. We're not going to get rid of it. We don't want to. It's our divine protector, but it's sometimes we outgrow what we used to need protection from. And we're still acting as if that's what we need to do, and it's not.
yeah.
So that's my take. Sorry, kind of went off on a tangent, but
No, it's perfect.
this difference between shame and guilt. Guilt is important, necessary if it's ours. Being guilted is not. That's not even anything in the realm of what's healthy. Other people's guilt, taking on other people's stuff is not. But,
No,
choosing what's true for us that disappoints someone else. Guilt is not appropriate in that. It's not our choice has not harmed someone. Their expectations that weren't met is what harmed or hurt them. That doesn't mean we're aloof. It just means when we do that to ourselves, it takes us out of balance. Like sometimes we make choices because we feel that guilt. I don't want to hurt them when
Yeah.
we know it's not aligned for us. So we can do it with love and peace and in a way that isn't harmful just by telling the truth. Because I can tell you, when you hold yourself hostage in guilt or shame, anybody that's in that is held hostage too. If I hold myself in a relationship because I feel guilty for leaving, I'm holding that person hostage in that relationship with me. And that's not more loving.
Yeah.
And vice versa. I wouldn't want that either. So guilt has its place, but it's for us. Mm, shame is a human condition and it does have its purpose, but not to live in it or from it.
Yeah.
I don't think that's ever the divine design.
Great answer.
Thank you.
Right.
Long answer.
Wow, it was perfect. All right. Where can we find you? And what if someone wants to work with you, where can they go?
Okay, so I have a website, often in the process of being updated. Bear with if you get a 404 for wellbeing.com or at kateabears.com. I often recommend people. I have a free opt-in that they can get that's very powerful and use it even if you don't do any more work, called the altar practice. It's the self to self stuck to self-trust. And it's that beginning of reconnecting with your own true voice and learning to discern the difference. It's one way they can connect. And then they're on the mailing list for information and updates. I really recommend anyone who's resonates with this or is feeling like they're outside themselves to schedule a sacred shift session, which is a full hour one-to-one immersion where they actually get to experience the shift from where they've been to who they are, not just understand it, but I use the work I use in the container, and we start with wherever they're stuck and we get right to it. So I help them in that session, whether they could do any other work or not. That's where they could start. And if they do other work, then they can apply what they invest in that to the program. So it's really, this work works when you're aligned with it. So it's not for everybody and they may not be ready. And I don't push that. It's really if they feel like this is the right space or the right time for them to come home to themselves. I walk every step with them all the way through it. You can email me at Kate at the Center for Wellbeing. Just if you hop on my website, there's a form there that you can get a message to me so they can connect with me that way. So there's lots of options. Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever works. That's what we do. So I don't know if that was clear, but
Yeah,
I'm
no.
assuming you're going to have it in the notes
Yep,
so
I'm
they
gonna
can.
put all the links in the show notes. And whatever you sent me, I will put in the notes. And yeah.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you, Kate, so much for this convo today. It's very
Thank you.
powerful and so appreciative of you coming on and sharing your wisdom and knowledge with all of us.
Thank you. I so appreciate you inviting me. It's been a joy. Thank you for letting me talk about it.
Yeah,
That thing we don't talk
absolutely.
about. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we don't talk about it enough. And I want people to realize if you're listening to this, it's okay. It's okay
Yes.
to talk about how you're feeling. It's okay to talk about not feeling okay.
Yes.
You know, there
Absolutely.
is no shame, no judgment.
No shame in being human. Absolutely not. And their support. So thank you so much. So good. So fast. It went so fast.
It did. It did.
Yeah.
So
All
right,
right,
well,
love.
thanks for hanging out with us on Fine, I'll Talk About It. If today's episode got you thinking, hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And if you want more real talk, more perspective shifts, and more finally someone said it moments, leave a quick review. It helps other people find the show. You can connect with me on Instagram at Inspired Action Wellness or my website, inspiredactionwellness.com, for more inspiration like this. We will see you in the next episode.